Can everybody hear me? Perfect. All right, thank you again for this opportunity to present some of the work that we're doing at LumaWave. So let me get started. Everybody here probably is familiar with the modern ultrasound. You often encounter it during pregnancy. You get images like these of the little baby. But modern ultrasounds become so much more powerful than this. We use it for all sorts of applications just beyond obstetrics. We look at things like the heart, lungs, the abdomen, and other joints and other musculoskeletal applications. Essentially, whenever a physician wants to see beneath the skin. In fact, today, every single resident, despite their specialty, needs to be trained in point-of-care ultrasound. And that's how ubiquitously it's been used in medicine. Current ultrasound works by sending in these sound waves and receiving the echoes to form images. Despite ultrasound's numerous strengths, you still get these grainy, often hard-to-tell images with limited information about how healthy the tissue underneath it is. Photoacoustic imaging changes that. By using a pulse of light, we can generate sound waves that can be detected by your typical ultrasound hardware. This directly maps more critical information about how healthy the tissue is. Essentially, we go from these grainy images to images like this that directly map oxygenation content or hemoglobin content within the tissue. The problem is that current photoacoustic systems that are on the market use these hazardous light sources that require specialized rooms for them to be used in. Moreover, they're large and bulky, like as you can see in these images, and also very, very expensive, making them really impractical for any point-of-care applications that really benefit from this technology. We've solved this. By using quantum-well semiconductor light sources, we've essentially packed a high density of these emitters in an array that's smaller than the size of a penny. In essence, this allows us to make these systems more miniaturized, inexpensive, safe, and scalable. As a result, we've developed this intuitive handheld device that that uses these safe, low-powered light sources to measure tissue oxygenation at 10x the lower cost compared to existing systems that are on the market. Our device would generate maps like these that are overlaid on top of your typical ultrasound image. What you're looking at here is the placenta of a rat, and here more red indicates healthy or normal pregnancies, whereas more blue indicates unhealthy or like a hypoxic placenta. And you're doing all of this in real time. Our initial prototype that we've developed allows us to map oxygen content in flowing blood, and also can clearly visualize clear anatomical structures such as the brachial artery, the bone in our in-lab human testing. Our go-to-market strategy is to target hospital-acquired pressure injuries. These are these skin discolorations as a result of subsurface tissue damage. Typically, you have this hypoxic layer, as you can see down here, by the bone tissue interface that then progresses into an open wound during the course of the hospital stay. And this is a huge problem for hospitals. They're the second most common cause of hospital-related lawsuits. They cost the US healthcare system almost $27 billion annually. And clinicians currently don't have a really good way to assess this at patient intake. It's just predominantly visual inspections for the skin discoloration. To illustrate this problem further, a typical healthcare system sees on average 1 to 3, these stage 3 or stage 4 hospital-acquired pressure injuries per 1,000 patients. Now, if you account for the increase in their length of stay as a result of this being an open wound and the per cost for the hospital bed, you're actually looking at a lot of expense, and so just reducing this by 10% would save a hospital system millions of dollars annually. And preliminary customer discovery has been great. A C-suite executive from Ochsner has mentioned that so much of wound care is still guesswork, and if we could just objectively assess these wounds and get patients out a day sooner, that's a big deal. And current physicians from Tulane have also mentioned that they currently don't have a way to assess wound oxygenation. And if they can just do that, they'd use that every single day. Our strategy is to actually have a capital-light, DRG-compatible payment structure. So we will, essentially price these devices well under $100,000 and have an annual service contract for both, any maintenance and also software access. And this is still less than 1% of the cost for a single ICU stay, assuming we have a deployment rate of 1 device per 10 ICU beds. We will target the 510K pathway, leveraging existing subsurface oximeters that are currently on the market as predicates. And we don't really need a new CPT code for adoption, as we will integrate this as part of standard DRG payments that's currently in place for inpatient care. Our long-term roadmap, we aim to have a CPT code for wound monitoring for outpatient integration. Our goal is to transform this deep tissue assessment for all Americans. So that really gives us a large market of around $32 billion. And these are all the health systems that are really impacted by these hospital-acquired pressure injuries. And we are targeting acute care centers as our first breakthrough market. Apart from wound assessment, this is truly a platform technology that can be used for all sorts of applications, especially anything that needs oxygenation assessments, for example, like cancers, that's all the way from head and neck to prostate cancer, GI applications, kidney diseases, etc., and any limb and vascular applications as well. And then you have flap monitoring, post-surgical monitoring, and that's in the human space. And you also have like neonatal and pediatrics are also a prime application just because of how safe the system is. And then you also have a growing veterinary market as well. So currently, looking at our product development timeline, we have a prototype that we have validated in some small animal models and also some phantom experiments. We have also filed a provisional patent and executed an exclusive license for any field of use. We are currently developing an alpha prototype that we can really use to run some clinical validation studies and launch our clinical trials. And we aim to have, initiate our 510K pathway, hopefully by mid-2028, accounting for this. And then, given this, we aim to open our pre-seed round of funding early 2027 to bridge our clinical and regulatory work. So our founding team includes me and my co-founder, Dr. Carolyn Bayer. Both of us have over 25 plus years of experience in the photoacoustic imaging space and are inventors of this technology. We're also guided by an amazing team of advisors who have deep expertise in wound care, regulated device development, and healthcare leadership. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time and open to questions.
Questions for Vin?
I will kick us off.
Awesome.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
I would love to hear about, you have been on the fast track from sort of your graduation to where you are today. I mean, kind of a rocket, actually. Can you describe maybe some of the experiences you've had and what has helped you to, get to a point where you can outline your technology development map and know when you're going to raise capital?
No, that's a good question, and you're right. It has been a rocket with like multiple boosters on it, honestly. Yeah, so I actually came into this with like, I think, an open mic. I want to say my last year of my PhD. I was like, okay, this seems like a cool idea. Let me just go pitch it and see if there's an actual need, right? And I guess like the programming through that to, hey, you need to do customer discovery and like actually learn what the actual applications for this. All of the like those things that you need to do to like actually get a business running was like, I was just not privy to any of this, and I think going through these has really helped me kind of learn these different intricacies within what it is like going from a lab prototype to actually a product has been, the programming from the Innovation Institute has been really key in helping me structure these things, have the right conversations with people. And so now as a fellow this year has been just, everything on steroids with like, more customer discovery, more, talking to people and leveraging all the resources that the Innovation Institute has to offer with the GWIN network. And so, yeah, I know it's probably like a bit of jumbled thoughts, but I think like overall it's been a sprint to get to where we are today, and I'm really, I don't think it'd be possible without all the support from the Innovation Institute. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting what you need to raise your capital and be the founder of a tech company?
Yes, definitely. I think all the support is there, and from especially from how to like even prepare your pitch deck to how do you raise capital, like even knowing the details, right? Like I don't think I would have learned all of this just on my own. So yeah.
Other questions for Vin?
Hi.
Hey.
I love your slides.
Thank you.
But I was just wondering if you could tell us more about how you got the idea for this technology and what inspired you to create a company for it.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So in the photoacoustic space, I think fundamentally the field has been just limited because of this over-reliance on these bulky laser systems. And that's so the first person to actually find this like technique was actually Alexander Graham Bell in like 1800s. He found the physics behind it, and then when computers came, like over 20 plus years ago, that's when the first photoacoustic systems came. But it's still been, I think, like a year or two ago when the FDA approved first photoacoustic system came to market. And it still hasn't been widely adopted for multiple fields of use, primarily because of this reliance on these bulky systems. So working with Carolyn, we were also in this environment where funding was a little constrained. So we were thinking of, hey, we're working with this old laser in our lab. Why don't we move to something that's new, something that's cheaper? Why can we use that to meet some of these needs we have? And that really what spurred this idea of like, okay, let's try alternative light sources to develop this more portable version. And then just seeing the interest from both our photoacoustics community and also like the physicians, especially in these niches, we were like, hey, I think we have something and we need to keep going with this. Yeah.
And that's time. Thank you so much, Vin.
Thank you.